Hey everyone, and welcome to the show. You know how we always dive into these pivotal political moments?
Right into the thick of it.
Yeah, well this time, imagine you're in the room with some of the most powerful people in the Democratic Party,
Mm.
right? Seasoned strategists, those who've seen it all.
The inner circle.
Exactly. And suddenly they're faced with this chilling possibility. It was like, what if their chosen leader just isn't viable anymore?
It's that feeling, that raw uncertainty that we're exploring in this deep dive. We'll be looking closely at the events right after a certain debate and using Jonathan Allen's book, Fight, Battle for the White House, to really understand the shockwaves that rippled through the party.
It's like being a fly on the wall, witnessing these raw, unfiltered reactions as the ground shifts beneath their feet.
Precisely. It's about understanding not just the political maneuvering, but also the human drama that unfolds in these high-stakes situations.
Absolutely. And for me, what really stood out was this sense of vulnerability that you just don't often see from these figures. Like they're usually so polished. But here they're grappling with these huge doubts, these anxieties about the future.
You see the intricate web of loyalties and self-preservation within the party. It's fascinating.
Yeah. And while I found those aspects super insightful, I have to admit the looming sense of crisis, all those unanswered questions hanging in the air, it was a bit unsettling.
It definitely makes you think.
Overall, for this really intense look behind the scenes, we're giving Fight, Battle for the White House, 4 out of 5 stars.
A solid read.
So let's jump right in. The book kind of throws us headfirst into the aftermath of, well, that debate. What were the initial reactions within the Democratic Party? Like, what were the vibe?
Well, to put it bluntly, it was pure panic. Almost everyone was in a state of shock and disbelief. Take Senator Chris Coons from Delaware, a close confidant of Biden's.
Yeah, I remember him.
Right, so he's at a campaign watch party, and his phone practically explodes with messages from other senators, colleagues, you name it. They're not even full sentences, just stark assessments like disaster, terrible,
Well, no sugarcoating there.
none whatsoever. And then it's followed by these desperate questions like, what the hell is going on? They're looking to him, someone close to Biden, for answers, for reassurance, anything.
So it was more than just people being polite. They were genuinely worried.
Oh, absolutely. This was a visceral reaction, a real sense of crisis in the making.
It sounds like the party was immediately thrown into disarray. And this wasn't just behind closed doors, right? There were some pretty public reactions too, weren't there?
Oh, yeah, some very prominent figures didn't hold back. Congressman Jim Clyburn from South Carolina, for example, a really influential voice within the Democratic Party, especially in South Carolina, his endorsements are highly sought after. Well, he watched the debate, and his immediate assessment, which he shared with close friends and top Biden advisors, was that Biden's performance was disqualifying. And he didn't just say it once, he repeated it several times.
Disqualifying. That's pretty strong.
It is. Then you have former Congressman Tim Ryan, who didn't even wait for the dust to settle. Moments after the debate ended, he published an op-ed basically picturing a Democratic ticket without Biden, suggesting that Vice President Kamala Harris should step up.
Wow, that's a bold move, calling for such a drastic change so quickly.
Yeah, a very public and swift call for a shift in leadership.
So you've got panic at the grassroots level and open criticism from key figures. What about the financial side of things? How did major donors react to this whole situation?
It was like a faucet being turned off. One longtime Biden fundraiser described getting bombarded with calls and texts, even in the middle of the night. Imagine that, being woken up by people basically pleading for Biden to drop out of the race ASAP. It was. And this wasn't just the usual low-level worry about Biden's age that had been simmering for a while. It was like all those concerns just exploded into this urgent push for him to reconsider.
Full-blown freak out.
Pretty much. Across the country, big-time donors slammed on the brakes. They started canceling events, pulling back contributions. As one Biden aide put it, even before the debate, these fundraising events weren't going well. But afterwards, forget about it. Hosts were basically saying, nope, not doing it.
They didn't want to be associated with a sinking ship.
Exactly. Even the most loyal donors wanted to see some sign that the campaign could recover before they'd commit any more money.
It's crazy how quickly that financial support can disappear.
It shows you how fragile political financing is and how quickly confidence can evaporate, especially when there are already doubts lingering about a candidate.
So the campaign's lifeblood was drying up. What was the mood like at Biden's headquarters in Wilmington during all this?
Oh, it was grim. You could practically feel the weight of the situation in the air. Aides described it as somber, almost like a funeral. They knew they'd just witnessed a debacle, as one of them put it. A senior advisor said something like, "We knew the coverage would be tough."
An understatement of the year.
Right. It wasn't about strategizing a comeback. It was more like a team just trying to process what had happened. They were reportedly even just grazing on leftovers for meals.
Not exactly the picture of a campaign brimming with energy and optimism.
Definitely not. Meanwhile, Vice President Harris was watching the debate from a hotel conference room in Los Angeles, literally a world away.
Yeah, what was her experience like?
While she watched in silence, interestingly, for security reasons, her phone couldn't receive text messages.
Probably a blessing in disguise at that moment.
I'd say so. But, she didn't need a bunch of texts to understand what was happening. And the book reminds us that she had pulled off a pretty big blindsiding moment herself against Biden during a primary debate back in 2019.
Oh yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
So she knew firsthand how a debate performance, good or bad, could completely change the game.
She had a unique perspective on the whole thing, having been on both sides of that kind of moment.
Exactly. Now, before we delve further into the aftermath, let's rewind a bit. The book also talks about those discussions that happened before the debate, when Biden was deciding whether to even run for re-election. What were some of the key factors that led to that initial decision?
Yeah, it wasn't a simple yes from everyone, was it?
No, not at all. Some advisors, like Bruce Reed, were all about giving Biden as much time as possible to prepare, to get into campaign mode. But others, like Jeff Science, thought it was more important to present a united front of support from the staff.
Different priorities.
Right. Then you had influential figures like Anita Dunn and Ron Klain, who argued that all the legal trouble Trump was facing was actually helping him, keeping him in the news, and kind of overshadowing Biden.
Interesting point.
They thought a debate could remind voters why they'd voted Trump out in the first place.
Bring back those memories.
Exactly. But then there's this, let's say, more pragmatic perspective offered by Mike Donnellan. He apparently told allies something along the lines of, nobody walks away from this. No one walks away from the house, the plane, the helicopter.
So there's this allure of power, the perks of the presidency. It's hard to let go of that.
It's definitely a factor.
So despite those internal debates and reservations, they decided to go for it. And then, well, we all know how that debate went. What were those first frantic steps they took to try and contain the damage?
It was full-on damage control mode, clean up in aisle Biden, so to speak.
Had to be done.
Mike Donnellan, for example, he was tasked with basically rewriting Biden's speech for a rally scheduled for the Friday after the debate. The initial idea was to have Biden acknowledge his perceived weaknesses head on. Saying things like, I don't walk as easily as I used to, I don't speak as smoothly as I used to, I don't debate as well as I used to, but I know what I do know. I know how to tell the truth.
Almost like owning it.
Right. But even some of Biden's closest advisors felt that this approach was, well, a bit too simplistic. Like it didn't really grasp the depth of what people had just witnessed.
It sounded like an excuse rather than an honest reckoning.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, campaign manager Jen O'Malley Dillon, she was holding these, let's just say, tense Zoom calls with senior staff.
Oh, I bet.
And she basically admitted that she didn't have a clear plan and wasn't even sure if Biden would stay in the race until November.
That's pretty shocking for a campaign manager to admit.
It was. But her main message to the team was, stay united, focus on getting Biden across the finish line, essentially telling them to put their doubts aside.
Easier said than done, I imagine.
You think? This actually backfired with some key donors. They felt like she was dismissing their concerns, brushing them off as disloyalty. One donor even said the meeting just made them more pissed off.
Adding fuel to the fire.
Yeah, it's like the initial response to the debate actually made things worse, created new cracks in the party.
So not only was the debate a disaster, but the initial attempts to deal with it just made the situation even more precarious.
Exactly. And that feeling of uncertainty, it wasn't just confined to the campaign. It spread to Capitol Hill, too.
Oh yeah, the fallout must have been huge there.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, for instance, who had his eyes on becoming Speaker if the Democrats won back the House in November, he was in a tough spot. He started leaning heavily on people like Jim Clyburn and Nancy Pelosi, trying to gauge the mood of the party.
Trying to figure out where everyone stood.
Right. And Pelosi, while publicly staying neutral, was privately telling friends that she thought Biden should step down. But, she's a political pro. She understood that pushing for this openly could cause a massive internal rift.
It could have completely backfired, especially for Jeffries.
Exactly. So her silence, her carefully calculated neutrality probably spoke volumes to those who knew her well.
It's fascinating how those unspoken messages can carry so much weight in politics. The book also mentions former President Obama's perspective. What was his take on all of this?
Well, apparently, Obama felt that Biden simply wasn't the best candidate moving forward. And while he seemed to favor Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, he also felt that an open contest for the nomination might be the most viable way to potentially replace Biden on the ticket.
So even Obama had his doubts.
It seems so. And the book suggests that his influence over Biden had diminished over the years, especially after Biden felt Obama hadn't fully supported his own presidential ambitions in the past.
There was some distance between them.
Yeah, and that may have influenced how Obama viewed the situation and what he thought was best for the party.
It's incredible to think that even someone like Obama, a giant in the Democratic Party, was reportedly questioning Biden's ability to continue after this one debate. It really highlights the magnitude of the crisis they were facing.
It does. It's a stark reminder that even the most seemingly unshakable political figures are vulnerable to these moments of uncertainty and doubt.
And it makes you wonder, what would have happened if things had gone differently?
Exactly. The book leaves us with that lingering question, a sense of what could have been.
It's a reminder that in politics, as in life, things can change very quickly, and the most carefully laid plans can be upended in an instant.
That's the nature of the game.
Well, if this deep dive into the inner workings of political strategy and those raw human moments of doubt and uncertainty has captivated you, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel.
We really appreciate you joining us today.
And don't forget, you can find the link to Jonathan Allen's Fight, Battle for the White House on Amazon. It's a great read, even if politics isn't usually your thing.
We'd love to hear your thoughts. What surprised you the most about this whole situation?
Let us know in the comments below. We always love reading your reactions and having these discussions with you.
And if you found this deep dive insightful, please share it with your friends and family.
Spread the knowledge. Thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you in the next deep dive.
See you then.